Answer on this one should be B. Answer on this one should be A. Answer on this one should be B. Answer on this one should be A. Pick a number from 1 to 20. Winning numbers today are 3, 9, 10, 14, and 17. The homework check today is from Friday after the test. 5 out of 9, which would be 56%. Here are the answers. Number 1 is square root of 6 over 4. Number 2 is 5 square root of 3 over 18. 3 is 5 square root of 5 over 2. 4 is 9 over 14. 5 is square root of 3 over 2. 6 is 5 square root of 30 over 24. 7 is 3. 8 is 3 square root of 3. 9 is 3 square root of 6 over 8. 10 is 4 square root of 6 over 9. 11 is 13 square root of 5 over 25. 12 is 14. 13 is 11 square root of 15 over 6. 14 is 9 square root of 10 over 20. 15 is 10 square root of, or not 10, but 5 square root of 2 over 6. The objective today is to simplify radical expressions. Here's a review before we do the lesson for today. A difference of 2 squares is something we've had a test over before. So this is a review. This is not new material. A plus B and A minus B. When you multiply those two together, you end up with a difference of 2 squares. In reality, when you multiply them together, what you end up with is this. A times A times a negative B, B times a positive A, and then B times a negative B. These cancel out, which is why you're just left with A squared minus B squared. So anytime you see the same quantity multiplied by itself except the signs are different, you square the first term and the second term and put a minus sign in the middle. If I had x plus 2 and x minus 2, what would the answer be? 2 squared is what? X squared minus 4, right? X squared minus 4. If I had x plus 4 and x minus 4, what would the answer be? X squared minus 16. If I had x minus 10 and x plus 10, what's the answer? X squared minus 100. Now if I had 3 plus the square root of 2 and 3 minus the square root of 2, what would the answer be? Three squared is 9. This times itself is what? 2. 9 minus 2 is what? 7 would be the answer. Square the 3, come up with 9. Put a minus sign down. This squared is just the number under the square root sign, 2. And then 9 minus 2 is 7. What if I had 7 minus the square root of 3 and 7 plus the square root of 3? What's 7 squared? 49. And what's square root of 3 squared? Final answer is? 8 plus the square root of 6, 8 minus the square root of 6. What's 8 squared? And square root of 6 squared. Final answer is what? Alright, here's example 1. You have 4 over 2 minus the square root of 2. You want to get rid of the square root sign on the bottom. On the last test, the square root was multiplied against something, or not, but you had to multiply the top and the bottom by that square root. Doing that here is not going to change anything, because you would end up with 2 square root of 2 at some point on the bottom. So what you have to do here is multiply the top and the bottom by this. Whatever the sign is in the middle, you have to change it. In this case it was minus, you change it to plus. And you multiply the top and the bottom by that same thing. By doing so, you're not changing the value because it's 1. This over itself is 1. It doesn't change the value, but it does simplify it. So on the top, if I multiply 4 times 2 plus the square root of 2, I have to do 4 times 2, which is 8, and then 4 times the square root of 2, which is just 4 square root of 2. Now on the bottom, you do what we just practiced before the first example. If I square 2, what do I get? 4. And if I square the square root of 2, what do I get? 2. And I subtract them. What's 4 minus 2? 2. So there we are. And that would be your final answer if you could not reduce it. And here's how you see if you can reduce these things. If you can find a number that will go into this, this, and this, all 3 of these numbers, this is excluded because it's the square root of 2, and it's as simple as it can get right now. Later on, it'll be different. We'll do different problems, but for right now, this is as simplified as it gets. But can you find a number that comes out of all 3 of those? 2. So if you can find a number that comes out of all 3 of those, divide each of those numbers by that number. If you divide all of them by 2, if you divide that by 2, you get 4. This by 2 is 2. And on the bottom, if you divide that by 2, you get 1. What can we not have in the denominator? 1. So your final answer is 4 plus 2 square root of 2.
Can you reduce that?
No. Example number 2. You have 5 plus the square root of 3 on the bottom. What must I multiply the top and the bottom by? 5 minus the square root of 3. And when I do that, on the top, I end up with 3 times 5 is 15, minus 3 times the square root of 3 is 3 square root of 3. On the bottom, these are multiplied together. They're the same except the signs are different. What is 5 squared? 25. And then minus, what is square root of 3 squared? What is that? 25 minus 3. 22. Is there a number that can come out of 15, 3, and 22? No, there is not. The square root of 3 is as simple as it gets. If you could simplify that, then you would have to. We'll have problems like that later on, but this can't be simplified. So that's your final answer. 15 minus 3 square root of 3 over 22. On this problem, you have to multiply the top and the bottom by 4 plus the square root of 7. When you do that, you end up with 24 plus 6 square root of 7. And on the bottom, this is 16 minus 7, which is 9. There are no numbers that come out of, well, actually there are. You can divide 24 by 3 to get 8, 6 by 2, or not by 2, by 3 to get 2, and then on the bottom by 3 to get 3. 8 plus 2 square root of 7 over 3 should be the final answer. For this practice problem, multiply the top and the bottom by 4 minus the square root of 10. On the top, you will get 32 minus 8 square root of 10, and on the bottom, it is 16 minus 10, which is 6. You can get a 2 out of each of these numbers to make it 16 minus 4 square root of 10 over 3. Answer to this one is A. Answer on this one is D. Answer on this one should be B. Answer is A. Example number 3. In this case, you still have to do the same as the last example problem, except there's going to be another step with the top. So on the bottom there, we have 4 minus the square root of 2. So we multiply the top and the bottom by 4 plus the square root of 2. On the bottom, we will do that first. You'll end up with 4 squared, which is 16, minus square root of 2 squared, which will be 2. So that's 14 on the bottom. Now on the top, we're going to work this one out right here. And think of it as two quantities, which they are. Your first step is to multiply 2 times 4 and come up with 8. Next, you're going to stick with that 2, but multiply it against the square root of 2. 2 times the square root of 2 is 2 square root of 2. What we just did is 2 times 4, 2 times the square root of 2, and come up with this. Now you have to move to the square root of 3. Square root of 3 times 4. Square root of 3 times 4 is 4 square root of 3. And then square root of 3 times square root of 2. Square root of 3 times square root of 2 is going to be the square root of 6. So all of this is from the top, and we have to spend some time cleaning this up, if we can. We have 8, 2 square root of 2, and then 4 square root of 3, and then the square root of 6. We have a lot of different radical terms in there, but our main objective has been accomplished on the bottom. We no longer have a square root. So you can put all of this over the 14, which is the denominator. You can go back and check to see if there is a number that comes out of 14, 8, 2, 4, and here is a 1. There is not. There is no other way that we're going to be able to combine all of these without ending up with a square root on the bottom again. Example number 4. On the bottom, you have 2 plus the square root of 3. So let's multiply the top and the bottom by 2 minus the square root of 3. On the bottom, which we will do first, you square this to get a 4, and this squared is 3. You subtract and come up with a 1, which means we're not going to have a denominator in this problem. Next, we go up to the top, and we have to multiply those two quantities together. Start with the 5 and multiply it by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. And then 5 times the square root of 3. That's minus 5 square root of 3. Now go to the square root of 6 and have square root of 6 times 2, which is plus 2 square root of 6, and then square root of 6 times the square root of 3. That's going to be minus square root of 18. Now as we go through and look at this, remember we no longer have a denominator. It was 1. We have 10 minus 5 square root of 3 plus 2 square root of 6 minus the square root of 18. The square root of 18 can be simplified. So keep your 10 minus the 5 square root of 3 plus 2 square root of 6, and 18 can be broken up as 9 and 2. Square root of 9, square root of 2. So that would be a 3 square root of 2 at the back end. This would be your final answer. For this problem, you have to multiply the top and the bottom by 2 minus the square root of 2. And when you do that, you'll have on the bottom here 4 minus 2 is 2. And then on the top you'll have 8 minus 4 square root of 2 minus 2 square root of 3 plus the square root of 6. 8, 4, 2, 1, and 2 do not have a common factor other than 1. So this is your final answer. Answer on this one is A. Answer on this problem should be B.